continue on to learn together the fascinating Tanya. We're learning chapter 42, which is discussing the different meditations of one meditating in order, right? In order to get fear and love of Hashem, as we have been learning. So I believe we are holding Thursday in Tanya. We're holding last week Thursday's Tanya, which is the middle of chapter 42. With Hashem's help, we're going to finish chapter 42 today. We're going to do 3 days Tanya today. It's fairly short these days, and we're going to learn about Hashem. That we need to meditate. Okay, we need to meditate on God, how Hashem is really part of our life. So we're going to learn more about that meditation. And we're going to say that Hashem, one of the big parts of the meditation is that Hashem knows everything that's going on. So by the human being, by us literally contemplating and recognizing that Hashem knows everything that's going on with us, that will cause us a healthy motor, a healthy engine of passion, of feelings, of awe and respect of Hashem. And that will cause us to have this awe, and that will give us a healthy dose of awe when we do a mitzvah, when we daven, when we learn Torah. That will give us the meaning behind it. So he's going to discuss what does it mean in the first part in today's Tanya. What does it mean that Hashem knows everything going on? We discussed this philosophically before. We're going to say, listen, if God gives human beings the ability to see, to hear, to smell, for sure Hashem himself must be able to see, hear, and smell. Now, which means he knows everything going on. The only thing is that obviously Hashem, even though he sees much differently than us. He wants to give an example to explain how Hashem knows exactly what you're doing, even what you're thinking, not just because just like you could see somebody else, you could see another person, so too Hashem could see, but you are part of Hashem, and therefore Hashem sees you, and Hashem sees everything by seeing himself, because everything is really him, everything is really Hashem. Example that he's going to use in Tanya is that you know that your hand's in the fire, God forbid, it's burning or it's hurting you, not because you looked at your hand, but because it is you, and therefore you know that it's being affected. You feel that it's taking place because it's you. The same thing is with Hashem, that he knows what's going on because it's him, because he knows himself. So he doesn't look at something externally, but he actually looks at something internally, that it's connected, and he sees what's going on. So let's learn that inside. And then and the outcome of this is that therefore you have to have awe and respect of Hashem, because Hashem knows exactly everything that's going on in your life, what you're seeing, what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, because you are part of him, and therefore, and that will create a strong sense of fear and awe of Hashem, because you know Hashem sees everything going on. Let's learn it inside. This that we say that Hashem has no physical body, right? We believe in Judaism that Hashem, and we'll learn about this later on in this chapter of Tanya, that God has no body. He doesn't have a form. So that doesn't mean if God has no body that he can't see us because he doesn't have eyes. He wants to say that actually the opposite is true. The fact that he doesn't have eyes means he could see inside of us, right? He has X-ray vision, or he sees inside of himself, and that's how he sees us. So you don't argue that God can't see because he's not like us and he doesn't have eyes. If anything, that's a proof the other way. Everything is known to Hashem. The Yasser says like Kates, Mirias Ha'ayin, Ushmias Ha'oizna Derech Mashal, much more than the eye could see and the ear could hear. Everything is much clearer to Hashem. Better vision than with an eye, or better hearing than with an ear. You could actually hear and see much better if you don't have an eye, because you're seeing inside of it through knowing yourself. So how do you see? He's going to explain that point now. It's by way of example. Just like in yourself, let's bring up example from people to understand how this works by Hashem a little bit. You know whatever's taking place in your body, in every single limb, in your 248 limbs of your body, you know if it's hot or if it's cold. Is it freezing or it's hot? You don't have to look at your hand to see is it hot or cold. You know because it's you. Even the tip of your body, like the nail of your toe, you stuck it, God forbid, in fire, it was burning, it would really hurt. You would know right away. You would know what's taking. You could feel. Oh, I can't even see it. I can feel inside my body. I know my toe is hurting me. There's no sign of it outside, but I could feel that there's something wrong with my stomach. There's something wrong with my arm inside of it. Your brain, right, the controller of your body, knows everything that's going on inside without you having to look at it. So although God doesn't have an eye or an ear, that doesn't mean he can't see or hear. Actually, he can see and hear much better. Just like you know what's going on inside yourself without looking at it. Similar to this idea, the way we know what's going on inside of us without looking. By way of example, analogy, God knows everything going on in the world, all of creations. God knows every single thing that's going on. You say, how does God know so much? He's so smart. He feels it. It's inside of him. He knows it because it's him. He knows all the higher worlds, the lower worlds, the angels. God knows everything going on, not because he has to see something else, but because it's going on. It's part of him. They all get vitality from Hashem, because everything that's there is from Hashem. So Hashem is making everything live. So of course he knows if anything happens, if there's any change, he knows about it because he's making it. That no creature is hidden. How could you be hidden from God? It is God. It's part of God. He's making it. Of course, he knows about it. And this is something philosophically discussed by the Rambam, Maimonides, and the Kabbalists. That how does God know? He knows it because he knows himself. Because just like he knows himself that he's real, he knows everything he created by default. So it's not that he knows something like, let me catch up on the latest news. Let me see what's going on by that person. He knows everything going on because he's making it exist. He's part of it, and therefore he knows what's going on. However, he's going to get a little philosophical on us now. He says, look, the truth is, this is a very nice example. We feel that our foot's hurting, so we know our foot's hurting without looking at it. God forbid, you know your foot's touching a fire because you feel it burning, pull your foot away. Without looking at your foot, you could do that. But the truth is, there's a very big problem with this analogy. It's not a good example to use the body to say the same thing as by God. Why not? It's going to get philosophical. Stay with me here as we try to understand this idea. When the godly soul goes inside the body, and he becomes one with the body, the soul comes one with the body, the regular soul becomes one with the body. It has a two-way effect. Not just does the soul make the body walk and talk and move, whatever, but the soul also gets affected by the body. So the soul could maybe feel the pain, it'll feel pain, it'll hurt the soul. The problem is, if you were, God forbid, you can't say the same thing with God, that God is affected by what's going on. So in other words, somebody dies. God, after 120, the soul leaves the body. The soul is affected too. So it does know what's going on in the body because it literally became one with the body. But guess what? The soul can become dirty too, or the soul feels the fact that it's losing the body. It doesn't have the body anymore. But you can't say that by God, that God is affected, caused change in by what happens in creation. God is the world, and he's making everything. That's why he knows it. But you can't say he really is the world, because that would mean that if something damages the world, something's damaging God too, which you can't say. So it's kind of like, you can only take part of the analogy and compare it to Hashem, because take the part that God knows what's going on by knowing himself. But on the other hand, you cannot take an example from God knows what's going on by knowing himself, because it's not really, he's not being affected by it. So it's kind of, you're on like a double line. You're kind of in between. You can't say that worldly creations make any change by God himself. So is this analogy a good analogy or not? So he's saying, how does it work that we say God is everything, but he's not affected by everything? How is that possible that he is everything, but he's not affected by everything? So the Alter Rebbe says, these Kabbalists have discussed at length and try to answer how God could be everything and everywhere and part of everything and feel everything, yet it doesn't impact him, in that you can't make any change to him himself. This is a Kabbalistic discussion, philosophical discussion that's not for now. The bottom line is, he says, regarding to our meditation of trying to point out that Hashem knows everything happening. We're all believers, the son of believers, even though we don't know exactly how it works. We don't have to become philosophers and start discussing and understanding exactly how Hashem understands the world. The fact is, we say there is no change by God. That's the fact. Hashem knows everything going on because everything's part of him, yet at the same time, even though you affect physical world, it will not affect Hashem. How and why? It doesn't matter. We believe it. It doesn't matter how we don't understand how Hashem works, and we're okay with that. We're believers, the son of believers, and we could understand that Hashem could be everything, see, know everything by being part of him, but at the same time, not be affected by it. That's our belief. But the bottom line is, what do we want to bring out from this? Let's get to our topic here. Is Hashem knows every single thing that you're doing. So the knowledge that God knows every single thing that you are doing, he knows what you're thinking and he knows what you're feeling. He knows everything going on in your life. No matter who the Jew is. If you meditate on this meditation, that the king of the world, God is the CEO, CFO, the manager, the overseer. He is the king over all the world. He's in charge of everything going on. He's everywhere. Literally, you look in the sky, you see the sun, you see the planets, you see the stars. What do you see? You see God. You see all the creation that God made. You say that God is everywhere. He feels everything. He made everything. Everything is just reflecting the Creator. Everything is correcting Hashem, is reflecting God. And then after you say that God is everywhere and is control of everything, he knows everything about you, right? Not just a video camera. He knows the insides of you, what's going on. Hashem counts every step, every single move you make. Hashem knows and remembers, doesn't forget it. By you meditating on that an hour every day, the fear of Hashem, the awe of Hashem will be ingrained in you. Then during the day, once in the morning, you spent an hour meditating on this, about the greatness of Hashem. During the day, in 1 minute, you'll rethink about it, and those thoughts will come crushing back on you. You'll get back in touch with that mode that when you had time, you spent time in meditating. You'll be able to literally make sure never to sin, always do a mitzvah, whether things in your mind or with your speech or your actions, like limrois, that you will not go against Hashem, who sees what you're doing and knows what you're doing. You'll have the same, you have the same level of feelings to Hashem as Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said earlier in Tanya. We mentioned that we should be afraid of Hashem, feel like God's watching us, similar to another human being watching us, because we act much better when we know another person is watching us. Now we're going back to our original topic. So we said in the beginning of Tanya, he asked a question. We said Moses told Moshe Rabbeinu told the Jewish people, what does God ask from you? You're ready to fear him? What's the big deal? So what's the answer? So there's two parts to the answer. We asked the question there. He said, what do you mean? Of course, it's very hard to fear Hashem. What does it mean? And the answer is two parts. Number one, we're not talking about great fear of God. We're talking about simple enough fear of heaven to get you not to sin and to get you to do the mitzvah. Enough motivation to get you not to sin. So that means your awe, fear, and love of Hashem may not be on a healthy, mature level, but it will be enough to easily meditating on these ideas will be enough to stop you from sinning. Will be enough passion, enough motivation not to get you to sin. That is shehi yira hamevi lekima mitzvahs yisbarach v'sur menav aseitiv v'yira tata haniskeres le'il, because at least just to get you not to sin and to do the mitzvahs, you have enough awe and fear of Hashem. And this that we said that for Moses it's easy. That if you get in touch with and start using your level of your brain power, called knowledge, called application, and you turn it on, that will cause you to have enough awe and fear of Hashem to get you not to sin and to do the mitzvah. Because what kind of program is the knowledge, the application program? That is the job of pulling out what's in the deep recesses, the hidden parts of your heart, to make it real to you, to pull off. That's what pulls out from your subconscious to your conscious. So as long as you're ready to invest in time and commit an hour a day to meditating on the fear of Hashem, by default, a Jew will be an amazing Jew who will never sin and will always do the mitzvahs, because that the knowledge has the tool. You have Moses within you that is the tool to bring out the subconscious feelings of Hashem into the conscious, and you're only trying to minimum at least accomplish enough meditation to cause you not to sin, even though it's not a mature, high level or in respect of Hashem, at least the basic it makes it to do possible. But after all this is said and done, and we have all these meditating ideas, these ideas of meditation, you should remember, just like in a king of flesh and blood, this is going to be another aspect we're going to finish with in the meditation. When you fear a king, because you might ask a question, you might say, look, this sounds all fine and good, but the fact is, a physical king is a physical person, and I get to see the king, and that causes awe and fear of the king by me. But Hashem, I'm living in a world which I don't see God. So this is the next point he wants to make about bringing out the subconscious fear of Hashem, even though I don't see him physically, by seeing his world and everything around us. You do see God, at least to a certain extent, though you do need to use your application and your knowledge part of your brain to make it real. The fact is, you could look around the world and it becomes real, and you could see Hashem in this unique way. Let's see this part of time. You should also remember, just like by a king of flesh and blood, a regular king, and you're afraid of the king. What are you afraid of in the king when you're scared? What are you scared? God forbid the king could kill you if he wants to. The king has control of your life. What are you scared of in the king? You're not scared of his physical body. You're not scared of the body of the king, the hands, the feet. What are you afraid of in the king? Look, when the king's sleeping, you're not afraid of him. He can't do anything to you. If you could not wake him up and he's sleeping, you're not scared of the king at all because he's not awake. So you're only afraid of the king when he's up, because now he could do something to you. He has control over your life. So what are you scared of? You're scared of the inside of the king, the fact that he is the king, the position he has, the power he has, not his body. So this argument to say that, I can't see God, so I can't be afraid of him. So and when you could see the body of the king, that's what makes you afraid of him. It's not the body of the king either. You're afraid of the power he has over you and the position that he has over you. That's the fear that you have. Through when you see the physical body of the king, you're afraid because you know inside that body is a person of tremendous power, and you know there's a king who's alive inside there, and that's why you're afraid of him. So the body is simply an indication, an implication that there is a king who has supreme rulership over you, and therefore you're afraid of him. Canaan, if so, if your body, you're not afraid of the body, you're afraid of what the body's representing, that it's indicating that there's a king here. But the same thing is with the world and Hashem. You could say the same argument with the world and God. Then you should be afraid of God. Because you could see physically Shamayim, Va'aretz, the heaven and the earth, and all the stars and all the planets. God is making these powerful things alive. Hashem is making them alive. So you might not see God, but the same way you don't see the king's energy, you see the king's body, and that's implying what's there. The same thing is here. You see the world, and that's representing the creations of Hashem, and therefore you know that the king is there. So right? If you see a watch, you know there was a watchmaker. If you see a world, you know there's a creator to the world. So just like the king, you're not scared of the body of the king, you're scared of the position of the king, the inside of the king. The same thing is here. You're not scared of the world represents the creator, and you could have the same fear of Hashem, just like you're afraid of the body of the king. And he goes into takes it a step further in the note. And he wants to say here, wants to argue, he says something interesting. He says the way we look at the planets and the earth, and it looks like they're always traveling from east to west, right? Is the reason Kabbalistically, or the Torah explains, is that the Shekhinah, God's presence, is in the west. So the way it seems to us that everything's moving from east to west is an implication of them bowing to Hashem. So not just by seeing the planets are we impressed, because we know that there's a creator. We know that the body, which is like the planets, is representing the creator, the king, and therefore we need to be afraid of the creator of the world. We need to have awe and respect. But even the planets themselves, by going from east to west, is at least what looks to us that it's going from east to west, is representing them bowing to Hashem, and that should impress us. A pasuk, like it says in the verse, in the Talmud brings down that it says that the stars in the heaven are bowing to God, because God's presence is in the west. And every day the traveling of these planets from east to west is a way of bowing and giving themselves over. And it's the same thing here. Even if you never physically saw the king, you don't even know who the king is in the group. When you go in to the throne of the king, you see all these major powerful people bowing to one person, you pick up very quickly that there's a king here, and you also need to respect what's there. You also get with a great fear. So here you are, you don't see God, fine. But guess what? You see the body, it's God, but God has no body, but you see the creations of God, and those creations clearly indicate that there's a creator to the world, someone in charge of the world. And those creations are bowing constantly to Hashem. And you're looking up and then you're saying, wow, that should cause a tremendous awe on me because Hashem's here. I look at what Hashem's doing, and therefore I need to have a tremendous awe by looking around at these things. Even though you're going to say, look, it's still very far. Okay, I'm looking at a planet that Hashem created. I'm looking at the sun that's very powerful, that's created by the creator of it. But it's still, you're going to say it's further away, right? I have to look up the sun, and the sun proves that there's a God. It's still not as direct as the body and the and the king, the energy of the king. It's still a little bit more direct. That'll cause you fear. So his answer to that is the hefresh klal b'yiras hamelech basav v'dam ben shu arum ben shu lavush levushim echad ben shu levushim rabim. Imagine the king is wearing a lot of pair of clothes. For some reason, he's wearing an undershirt, then he's wearing a shirt, then he's wearing a sweatshirt, and he's wearing a coat. You're not going to say, oh, I'm less afraid of the king now because he's wearing more clothes. It doesn't matter how many steps it is. The fact is the king is there. Who cares if there's more levels of separation of clothing on the king? The king himself is here. So you're going to say, look, it's a little bit further than the king being here by seeing his body. No, but who cares how many levels of separation it is? The fact is the king is still here, and therefore you should have the same awe and fear of Hashem as you would have of a physical king. So what's just lacking here? It's just the discipline and getting used to it. It's doing it again and again, because when you do things many times, that's where it becomes real, because you just got to get it out of the subconscious to the conscious, and then it becomes real life. The hargul daiti machshavtei tamid, to cause you have to just it should become nature, right? It becomes second nature. You have to think about Hashem. The iskavua believe in tamid, to make it ingrained in your heart, in your mind. That everything you see with your eyes, the heavens, and the earth, and Malaya, and everything in the earth, everything we see in our world, that's a creation of God. The external clothing of God, they represent that Hashem is here. And then by getting used to looking at nature in a way that it brings out that what's the energy making it is Hashem, because Hashem is here. This meditation will cause you to really make looking at Hashem as very real, and you'll start to believe more and more in Hashem. And you start to have not just belief, but you start to have awe and respect for Hashem. Now he says something interesting. He says, look, so is belief, is what we're trying to do or accomplish through intellect, through logic, and realize that Hashem is here intellectually, or are we trying to do belief? He's saying, look, intellect and belief are very different than each other. Belief means it doesn't logically make sense to me. And belief, belief means I believe in it, whether it makes sense or not. I believe in it. Let's say as a Jew, I believe in this. And logic means the opposite. It's not because I believe it. It intellectually makes sense. I can discover it with intellect. So he says like this. He says, so which one is it? What are we expecting of the Jew? Logic or belief? So he says it's an interesting idea now that belief, emunah, also means something else. What is the way to get to belief? It actually means consistency, persistence, that by causing your brain to think and about Hashem, it will become second nature. It means training. It means just like you need to train to get used to something. He habituates himself. Just like you might be the greatest musician, but if you never played the instrument, you'll never bring out that talent that you have. You should always remember. The last point he wants to make is he's like, look, this is we discussed many meditations and we discussed many ways of things that one should think about Hashem. But at the end of the day, the one simple way that every Jew can feel is that saying, look, at the end of the day, even if I don't accomplish all those meditations and I don't invest as much time as I should, I still can always feel that I need to serve Hashem like a servant. I got to do what Hashem wants without any investment in bringing it out from the subconscious to the conscious. Just say, I'm a creation of God, and therefore I have to serve it. Because God, who's a creator, who runs the whole world and everything else in there, he wants a Jew to act as a Jew, specifically. And I am accepting on myself to serve Hashem, even that little minimal, again, because we're trying to at least get the most basic meditation and feeling. So you could go to shul in the morning and say, look, I'm serving Hashem because he's the creator of the world. That is a little bit of an engine already to bring some meaning into your prayers. That's why we bow often in the Amidah. After we read the Shema prayer, we say, God, you're one. We start to bow in the Amidah. Why are you bowing? Because we're bringing out the fact that we are servants of the Creator. To literally, physically say, Hashem, you are King of the world. You run the world, and therefore I bow to you because you are my King, bringing out the level of Hashem being the King of the world. And that, my friends, is the end of chapter 42, which took us to the next step. After chapter 41, we started with the meditations, and chapter 42 is that taking to the next step of various meditations in connecting with Hashem so that we have passion and meaning behind our behind all the mitzvahs and davening that we do. Any questions or comments before we say goodbye? Any questions or comments on today's Tanya? Not, we will say goodbye. Thank you all for joining me.